Going on, guys? Welcome to the Finding Purpose podcast. I am so excited to introduce our guest today, Brian Gaydorus, Brandon Gaydorus. Oh my God, sorry, Brandon. He is the founder of Warm Heart Life and a four-time author. He's actually been a huge part of my journey, which I found it to be a no-brainer to host him here. Brandon, welcome, man. I wanted to just congratulate you on the Miami Speaker School, and obviously your flagship event A to B Con is coming up, which you have honored me with the opportunity to speak on that stage, and I'm looking forward to just such an awesome event. Um, but I really want to get into obviously what led you to this moment. I mean, you've been building over the past 3 years, and I've heard a lot about your professional journey starting in 2018 when you launched Warm Heart Life, and having met your brother over the weekend. That was awesome, and I really wanted to know like the early days of Brandon and his early life and what that was like, and if you could.
Yeah, it's funny because you're doing the intro and I'm like, wow, that is a great name for a podcast, finding your purpose. And I was listening to my mentor probably about 6 months ago. I try and see him speak as much as I can because he's pretty much retired. He speaks once in a while in smaller settings nowadays. And he said, man, I'm so sick of people trying to say, I'm searching for my purpose. I want to know what my purpose is. He's like, you got one purpose while you're on this earth, and that's to leave it better than when you got here. And that really hit me because when you talk about the beginning days, it's like, okay, you have the successes. You win the golf tournaments, you get the good grades in school. And what is that? It's a feeling of self-accomplishment. And I started to realize that if you set goals for yourself, you can achieve them if you take the right steps, right? We know that. But what I really realize is when you set a goal that's bigger than yourself, where you need other people to be able to achieve that, then it's a lot more fun.
Mm.
And so with what I do now, a lot of what I do is set on, hey, I want to grow together with as many people as possible. And one of the things that motivated me when I was younger was I used to play golf. I used to play golf because I was so sick of sitting on the bench in the other sports. I was the ultimate average athletic. I was good. I was a good shooter. I was accurate. I could hit the baseball, but I was always small. I was not very physical. And because of that, I struggled in physical sports, not because of a lack of athleticism, because of a lack of physicality. So, football, that was the furthest thing from something that you
Yeah.
could see Brandon Gaydorus doing. But baseball, I would barely ever strike out, but I would barely ever get it past the infield. So I was like, man, what's a sport that I could control? And I started playing golf. And I started getting better and better at golf. I was one of the best on my team. And then in the local area, I was definitely one of the better golfers. I was never the best, but I was definitely on the higher edge of there. However, I realized that you could put all the work in that you want, and there's only so far you can go by yourself. Because I would be practicing. I probably practiced harder than almost anybody in high school, and I still wasn't the best. And I looked back on that moment. I was like, well, why was I not the best? It's because I wasn't learning from the best.
So like when you were trying other sports and you're realizing, hey, like this isn't for me, obviously the physical limitations, um, like mentally, what were the lessons that you learned when you tried and realized that this wasn't for you, or maybe even failed when you tried them, um, that led you to golf?
Yeah, I was just so sick of waiting for coaches to give me an opportunity to play. Here's the thing. In public speaking, I teach public speaking. You get better at speaking through playing or through speaking. Sorry. And in basketball was a sport that I knew I could be good at. I just needed to play. I knew I could compete with these guys. I was just so small, and my physicality sucked, and my confidence went significantly down because every time I got put in the game, there was so much pressure on me to be able to hit a 3-pointer. That's what I was known for shooting. So if I didn't hit a 3-pointer, all of a sudden it was like, okay, what's the use of this guy? And there was so much pressure, which that pressure actually helped me when I started getting into comedy, when I started getting into public speaking, because I was like, man, if this may be my one opportunity, if I don't seize it, if I don't take advantage of it, I may not get another chance. And so that really helped me a lot with the basketball when I was younger, and then in the speaking when I got older. The thing I struggled with was I knew I needed repetition in basketball,
Mhm.
and it was so hard for me to get that in-game repetition when I was sitting on the bench for the majority of the game. And it just so happened to be that I was always on really good teams.
Mhm.
For basketball, it was like I I went and played church league, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna for sure get to play. Turns out we were competing for the championship every year. I think 2 out of the 4 years, I think we won, and then the other 2 years we were close. And we probably could have beat a lot of high school teams, that like actually high school team. So
Mhm.
I thought I was doing the right thing, playing the church league where I would get to play, and then all of a sudden my team is stacked because a bunch of people didn't want to play on
Yeah.
the school team that would have played. so um, so I was frustrated with that, and then with golf, it was like I could control being the first person at the range. I could control hitting golf balls after. I could control taking the lessons. I could control looking for tips on the internet that I could apply. But to finish off my first point, I would just practice, practice, practice. But I was learning from people like my dad, who was not a professional teacher or not a professional golfer. And I would take lessons once in a while, but I was never really learning from the people who had the results that I wanted. And when I started getting better at golf in college, I started learning from people who had those results. But the thing was, I started seeing what those people were doing, and I was like, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I don't want that life. But I saw greatness. My first internship, he played in 2 major championships. So if you don't know what golf is, there's 4 major championships in the year. And the pro at my golf course played in 2 of those that year. So that's like the World Series of golf. My pro played in 2 out of the 4. That's unheard of for a pro at a golf course. And I saw the stresses that were in his life. I saw the stresses that were in his family life. I saw the what he had to do to be able to make sure to practice. I saw how he had to handle all the messages from the members. And I said, man, if that's what my path is to be there, that's definitely not what I want. Because I saw the lifestyle he lived. I said, that's not what I want. But I said, I understand what it takes to be one of the greats now. Because I saw him. I saw him on a daily basis.
Mhm.
I saw him getting at the course. He'd get there at 5:30 just so he could practice before the workday started. And I realized, maybe that's not what I want. But I found another field that I was very interested in, who that pro actually encouraged me to start pursuing, which was the fitness side of golf. And I started seeing the greats, and I'm like, man, I could be there. I could do that. I could be the best in the world at this. And at 20 years old, I saw a guy speak in college. He said he wanted to be the best in the world at what he did. All he did was write down the top 10 people at what he wanted to be the best at. And then he learned, observed, shadowed, studied, and met those 10 people. So at 20 years old, I said that's like, what else is there to do? Why don't I just do that? This school thing isn't clicking for me. Why don't I just follow what this guy said who had the results that I wanted? This guy was very, very successful past his career in the golf world. This guy had a very successful business side to his life, real estate, you name it. And I wrote down my top 10 lists that day. 3 weeks later, I found myself on the phone with the number 3 person on my list. He told me every single thing I needed to do to be successful in the industry. 20 years old, he told me everything I needed to do. 6 years later, 6 years later, I get voted top 50 in America at what I did. And I was on the same list as the guy who gave me that advice 6 years prior.
That's awesome.
And I wasn't fulfilled.
Hmm.
I wasn't fulfilled. It was the same thing with golf. I wasn't fulfilled because I had been put so much work in by myself. And it just like, okay, you win a golf tournament, you do good in a golf tournament. It's like, okay, wow, great. And then I get voted top 50 in America as a golf fitness trainer. And it was like, okay, great. Nobody saw the years and years. I mean, the amount of time I would go out of my comfort zone to learn what I knew at such a fast rate. I say fast rate, but from 17 to 26, I was going all over the country learning from the best. And I said that story at 20, but for the 3 years prior to that, I was studying the top fitness professionals in my world. I'd already knew who those people were, and that just really made me think. I said, you know what? What the heck? Like if I now that I know how to climb the mountain, I didn't quite know how to do it as a golfer, but in the golf fitness world, I knew how to climb that mountain. I was one of the best. I was the youngest person on that list. I had my entire career set for me if I wanted to stay in that field, and I wasn't fulfilled. I said, this is just lonely. Like I feel so lonely. And
Was it the traveling, or was it the did you still feel like like a small fish in a big pond, or was it just the nature of the actual business that there was no higher purpose in your mind?
so to get really good at something, in my mind, there needs to be a lot of work in the dark put in to be able to get really good at that, to accumulate the knowledge. And they say it takes 10 years or 10,000 hours to become a master at something. And I felt like over ten years, I became a master at that. Um, people could argue differently, but I felt like I was pretty damn good. I felt like there was a lot of room to grow, as always. That I feel like the greats are always pushing to be greater because they could see stuff that a lot of people can't see. So I knew there was still room for me to grow in that field and there was a lot to learn. But I was just like, man, if this is what it feels like to work your tail off for something for 10 years and accomplish everything that you dreamed of. Like I was getting published and the viewers on here may not know, but just picture the biggest publishers in your field. I was in those magazines. They were putting me on their social media. I had the book out at the time. It was a dream come true. I was getting pros reaching out to me. I worked for a guy who trained some of the top golfers in the world. Like at 22 years old, I worked for a guy who was training Brooks Koepka.
Nice.
I got to see how that guy trained on a weekly basis. Now I was not his trainer, but I was right next to him, and I got to see that. And the guy's a four-time major champion, and so that was cool to kind of see all that stuff. But I was like, if I'm gonna climb another mountain, and I'm gonna take 10 years out of my life to chase something great, which if I wasn't chasing something great, then I don't know if I'd be here. Like I just I don't know. Like it's so hard, I think, to live this life the way that you want to if you're not chasing something. My mentor Brandon Dawson, he said one of the reasons I think businesses should have events is so people can have something to look forward to. And I think it's the same way in your life. I think when you have something that you can look forward to, it gives you that purpose. And for me, I was kind of in a slump because I was like, I knew that I probably did not want to do what I really enjoyed doing. It's not like I didn't enjoy it. I knew that I probably didn't want to do this the rest of my life. So I started saying, what do I actually want? And my mentor, he said, Brandon, he said, if you're really trying to figure out what it is you want, think about how you want to live and then figure out a way to pay for it. He said, think about how you want to live and then figure out how you could pay for it. So I took a lot of time to think about, how do I want to live? Like, do I want to, for all of my 20s, I can't remember ever taking a vacation. Like when you talk about the loneliness, I can't. I remember there was a girl that I liked. I remember there was a girl that I liked, and we were hitting it off, and we had seen each other. I don't know how many times, but enough where you knew there could be something there. I remember looking at my schedule, and for 3 weeks there was nothing, like no room where I could ask her out on a date. And I remember just looking at her like, I don't even know what to say right now. This is so embarrassing. I had no pretty much from the crack of dawn to 9 p.m. at night for 3 weeks straight. I think Sunday afternoon I was traveling back both weekends. I maybe could have fit something in later in the day.
This is when you were when you were in the golf world.
Yeah, and this was actually when I was doing Warm Heart Life too, and but this was really the time. This was probably like 2022 when I was just like, I'm just going all in with Warm Heart Life, and because Warm Heart Life started in 20 that the actual Warm Heart Life started in 2019, but the first LLC with Warm Heart started in 2018, and then I split it off in 2019 into the two different companies, and so yeah,
So
I
like,
could go into the vision of it or wherever you want to go, depending on.
yeah, I mean, well, you said your mentor asked you, how do you want to live your life, and figure out a way to pay for it. And then you also you ended your chapter of golf like feeling that there was still something left that you felt unfulfilled, and that's where you Warm Heart Life was born. So bring me back to the beginning days of Warm Heart Life and the process when it came to just kind of establishing its origins, establishing what you want to accomplish from it, and who you want to reach.
Yeah, so in 2018, I knew I knew that I needed to start an LLC. So my I was at a company for 3 years and they were going downhill. So I had to start an LLC because I was starting to pick up clients in my fitness business. So I said, all right, if I'm going to start this LLC, let me like kind of take this seriously. So I started thinking about what I wanted, and I was like, everybody needs a warm heart. I was sitting at the beach one day. I was just sitting there thinking, because this guy I studied when I was in my lower 20s, Ty Lopez, he said, one of the most valuable things you can do is just go to a place where there's no sound, no people around, and just sit there and think. Just see what comes to your mind. And so I would work on that. I've worked on that drill a lot throughout my life. I actually even put that on my task today. I was just sitting there on the street, just seeing what came to my mind there, and not in the middle of the street. so I was like, you know what, everybody needs a warm heart. So I started the LLC and I called it Warm Heart Fitness and Entertainment because I've always had a passion about the mentor side of things because I did 9 internships. Now I had did an internship the summer
Nine?
before. I did 9 internships. Yeah,
That's a lot.
yeah, and I did an internship the summer before in the music industry on the side. I was still working full time as a personal trainer, but when I moved to Stamford, Connecticut, I went to this thing called the Live at Fives, and I was blown away by not only the business side of it, but the amount of cute girls that were there. And I
Hmm.
was just like, how do you get this atmosphere? You got the beautiful girls, you got the businesses, they would block off the street, you got the businesses that are collaborating with the town to block off this street for this day. Then they put a stage right in the park, and they got like 8,000 people there with 2,000 people waiting to get in for Third Eye Blind. And I said, man, what the heck? I got to learn how to do this. And I didn't really I didn't really think I was going to have a concert at the time. It was interesting to me. So I reached out to the ladies, and they're like, sure, come meet with us. We'll answer any questions you want. So I meet with them, and I'm sitting there. I have all my questions about the music industry. And the lady goes, Brandon, we could give you all the advice that you want, but if you really want to learn about this industry, you're going to have to get your feet in the water. So I said, well, what does that
So
mean?
you were just sitting there. You were just sitting there taking notes, and she said that to you.
Yeah, she's
Okay.
like, you're going to have to get your feet in the water. And I said, well, what does that mean? She said, well, you're going to have to see what it's like to stand by the tickets at the front gate and get tickets out there to people who are coming in. You're going to have to understand what it's like to pick up these tents and set them up for the vendors. You're going to have to move some fences so you could see what it's like to block off the street to make this legally happen. She said you're going to have to bartend some nights and see what it's like when all these people are coming up to you for drinks and hear what they're saying. And she said then you're going to have to spend some time backstage so you can see what that process is like. She said if you really want to learn, then come intern for us. So I was like, all right, screw it, I'll come intern for you. So I meet with the internship director, and the internship director interviews me. And then he emails me back. He said, hey, sorry, everybody's coming back from last year. We don't got room for you. So the higher up says, you got to come intern for us. Then the middleman says, sorry, we don't got room for you. I'm like, what the heck? So I go, this wasn't about the money. I just wanted the experience. And
Did,
he's like, sorry, we just don't have room for you. So I go, screw this. So I walk into the office because I couldn't believe this because she told me we want you to intern for us. And then he's saying no. So I go into the office and I talk to the front desk lady and I say, hey, the guy's name was Frank. I said, is Frank there? And she goes, sorry, he's busy. Can I take a message? I said, no, it's fine. I'll wait. So I'm in the office and I just sit there at the desk and I'm just waiting there. And the lady's like, man, this guy's not going away. So 30 minutes later, Frank comes out and Frank's like, hey, sorry, we just don't have room for you. I wasn't expecting everybody to come back. You didn't do anything wrong. All this complete BS. And I was like, you know what? I I tell you what, Frank, like I'm just looking to learn. And when I met with the director, she said, you just got to get your feet wet. And he said, well, maybe we can get you for the lightest ticket day. Maybe that will be a good day for you to shadow and learn some stuff. And he said, why don't you come for Rachel Platinum? Platinum. I'm not sure. You know who I'm talking about. This is my fight song. Yeah.
oh yeah, Rachel Platten.
And they had 10 events. They had 4 on Wednesdays and they had 6 on Thursdays at the time. So I said, Frank, this was never about the money. I just want to help out and get the experience. And I think for people who haven't had that high level of success, it's hard for them to understand this when someone just genuinely wants to learn. And I said, I just really want to learn. And he says, all right, Brandon, screw it. If you just want to help out, you can help out every concert. I was like, yeah. So he goes, show up on Wednesday at 11:30. So I show up on Wednesday at 11:30. Everybody had already been working for an hour. And I was so pissed because he felt bad that I was volunteering, that he had me show up at a later time than everybody else there. So I was fired up and I worked harder than I probably ever worked in my life that day. At the end of the day, they go, hey, Brandon, we're going out to dinner at Columbus Park if you want to join us after. Because meanwhile, they kept telling me, Brandon, you can go. But there was work that needed to be done. We had to take down all the fences that we had set up that day, and we had to take them down before the end of the night. We had to take down all the tents. I was like, I'm not going to leave these people. And so I helped them out. It gets to like 11 o'clock. We go to Columbus Park. The head lady is there, and she goes, Brandon, you were so helpful today. You worked your ass off. We are going to hire you starting tomorrow.
That's
now,
awesome.
now, what they don't know about that is I probably made about $1,000. I probably made about $1,000 for those 10 events. Like it's not like I made a ton of money. I probably made about $100,000 that year for what I was doing with my business, give or take. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was probably right around there. And actually, I was inside a company that year, and so that just proves that it was never about the money. It was about I genuinely wanted to learn, but the fact that they did pay me gave me a lot of confidence with everything that I started pursuing in the future. And
So like going back to Frank, like his inability to like kind of wrap his head around your just desire to learn. Do you think that's just like like a 9 to 5 kind of W-2 mindset to an entrepreneur in comparison to an entrepreneurial mindset? Um, and like he just didn't have that same understanding of like how much information can value your future, can add value
yeah,
to your future.
yeah, I think the majority of people are like that. I just I was fortunate enough to learn from someone what even my dad is like, why would you do an internship for free? I can't tell you how many things my dad said, why would you do that? And then after I did it, he'd be like, man, whatever you're doing, keep doing it.
That's
He's
awesome.
because a lot of people can't make sense of certain things, and one of them is why would you do an internship for free? I'll tell you what, man, I'll figure out how to make the money outside of the internship. If I'm going to do an internship, I'm doing it to learn. I said, if you're going to pay me, you can pay me. If you're not going to pay me, I'm going to figure out how to get money outside of that. And that's what I did. The internships that I would work for free, I typically learned the most.
Hmm.
So when I was approaching that internship, I didn't care about the money. But most people's mindset is like, why would anybody work if there wasn't money exchange? Listen, I was working to figure out how to be able to run a show that costs 250,000. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I was working for that, and in in 2023, I co-promoted a show that costs a lot of money, not 250,000, but because of I had those experiences back then, because I started having my own conferences, my own uh, yeah, I started in the music industry. My first show was in 2019, 2 years after that. And that same mentor who told me to get my feet in the water, she sat down with me and had lunch with me and helped me get a better understanding of what I needed to do to be able to have my first show. And in 2019, I had the first show. I thought I was going to be in the music industry. I thought I was going to be Warm Heart Fitness and Entertainment, where I had a world class gym facility that had the best concerts in the world for up and coming artists. So it was going to be a gym during the day. Then we would have a way to clean out the equipment, and we kind of make it that this like mini kind of amphitheater type of vibe where we would have the best up and coming artists in the world come sing there. And that was a way where the mentorship vibe of me was still be able to be fulfilled. And
That's actually
so
a good concept.
yeah,
I mean,
and I was thinking I was gonna. So one of my mentors was actually he's actually the COO of Time Warner Records. So I was getting associated with people that was helping me believe in the possibilities. Like this isn't just no dream. This is you can help these people. So I was I was really thinking I was going to be in the mentorship side of the music industry. That I was going to be like more like a Scooter Braun, what he did for Justin Bieber. I thought I was going to be kind of in the music exec side, but the pandemic hit, and I found out that I was able to do the mentorship more in a way that I actually wanted to, and that's when I switched to my full focus to personal development.
that's awesome, man. Obviously, pivoting to the personal development component, I've seen you work with others. I've seen what you've done with Warm Heart Life. I've seen people who do the coaching with you weekly and kind of where their businesses have gone and um, how they've grown as not only just in their business but just as people. Tell me how important it is for you that your clients and the people that you work with are doing what they're doing for the right reasons.
I think it's very important. That goes to to the theme of my company. So my company is called Warm Heart Life because I feel like I can't change the world, you can't change the world, but I feel like collectively we can change the world together. And so I want to be around people who want to bring more positivity to the world, who want to help more people out, who want to be the problem solvers instead of the drainers. And so I think that's very important. And if you see under Warm Heart Life, it says we care. And that's the core values of my company. So what a lot of people don't realize is the first year, all I would do for Warm Heart Life was say the core values. Before it was even Warm Heart Life. For Warm Heart, all I did for the first year was I would say the core values. And I would say them pretty much every day. There was a page of core values. And it stood for create opportunities for yourself and others. Then there was 3 sub core values and the meanings of them. Then it was active lifestyle, live that through your words and action. Then there was 3 sub core values and then meanings behind each of those. And then R stood for respect is earned, not just given. And then there was 3 sub core values and meanings. And then E stood for, or stands for excel forward. And that later inspired the theme behind my conference, A to B Con, because that was a theme in there, the whole A to B concept. And then there was 3 sub core values in there. And I based those core values off of the most successful companies in the world. Walmart, Amazon, Pandora Jewelers, Starbucks. And the word care came from, I saw this guy speak who was very successful. He said, people want to pay me all this money to help them with their business. And I say the same thing every time. You just got to care a little bit more. So that's how the concept of we care came out. And that's how the premise is, because essentially, what does a warm heart do? A warm heart cares. So to tie that back into your question, anybody who works with me, all I look for, I don't look for the business as much as the care and the reason why they're doing it and the warm heart.
That's awesome. Have you ever? Sometimes I feel like it's hard to. I mean, like speaking from personal experience, it took me a while to find my purpose. It took me a while to find where um, my experience and story would resonate into a place where not only I could monetize it, but I could also impact the lives of others and reach a broader audience that can relate to what I've been through and why I'm doing what I'm doing. When you are talking with a client and you feel that maybe what they want to do isn't aligned with who they are, how do you approach that? And like what what's the dynamic there when that happens?
Well, one of the things is I need to have a very clear understanding of what the client wants. So I tell people before they do one-on-one coaching with me, I said, I need 4 weeks to help come up with the clearest goals that you've ever seen before. Personal, professional, financial, short term and long term. I said, you give me 10 weeks or 4 weeks, I'll help you come up with the clearest goals you've ever seen. And then we can continue to progress towards attacking those. But if people don't have time to let a goal settle in, I feel like they're not going to be as excited about that goal. I used to rush the goal setting process with people. What happened? It didn't stick with them as much. So I realized one of the things I'm talking about at A to BCon this year is creating a big vision. Because I started thinking about it, I was like, what value can I bring to people? And I was like, you know what? I've been attacking a big vision for 3 years and it stayed the exact same. I'm still going after the same vision, the same time frame that I put down in June or July of 2021 on a napkin. I'm still going after that same vision. And I heard Arnold talk about this when I saw him speak on Thursday. He said, I think the most important thing is the big vision. He said, if you have the big vision and you believe in yourself, then the action follows. And so with finding your purpose, I believe everybody has their opinion on this. This is why it's cool that you have this theme as your podcast. I believe everybody has the same purpose, which is to leave this world better than when you got here. Now, when you break down what does your purpose actually mean past that, what are you going to pursue to fulfill that? That does take a little bit of time. It does maybe take experiences that you've gone through, whether they're good or bad. But I think one of the best ways to actually find that purpose, the specific purpose, is to take a lot of time to think about how you want to live, and then to think about how you can pay for that. And to do that, I think it takes a lot of time to think about. Sometimes it's sitting at the beach by yourself when nobody's around. Sometimes it takes talking it over with a coach who can ask the right questions to get you thinking. Sometimes it takes visualizing something you want to do, laying in bed at night, and then working it out in your head. People see my
Hmm.
conferences now. What they don't see is when I was interested in having conferences, I was visualizing it being at the beer garden and hiring a former American Idol winner that nobody knew his name who lived around here to perform. That's
Really?
that was my original vision, but because I role played it out, I talked it out with people, then I would visualize it. It turned into, no, let's just have a personal development conference with some powerful speakers that I knew, and and let's have a dinner after so people can get to know each other. And if I didn't have the dinner after, I don't know if any of this would have happened. If I just had an event, I think I may not have had another event like that. But the dinner changed everything for me. The dinner brought the friendships there. The dinner brought the smiles. The dinner brought the collaborations. The dinner brought the inspiration to continue to develop a relationship with these people. And and I'll tell you what, man, like when I first started visualizing the event, it wasn't even close to to where it was then, and then to where it is now. I literally think that A to B Con 3 can be the number one personal development event in the country. Will it have the
That's it.
names? Will it have the names of the conferences that have 5,000 people? No, not necessarily, but it could have the impact that those conferences have on other people. And I think that is just as valuable as the name of the person coming.
See, that's awesome because, like having been working with you and Heart of Warm Heart Life community for a while now, the one thing I can say about you is that you always attract that same um, pay it forward kind of energy where it's not just about enriching oneself. It's really about like enriching the mind and the spirit and the full fulfillment. And that's to me, having gone to A to B Con last year, like that's a culmination of that community. um and I loved like just the energy of the conference. What's the thing that you're most looking forward to um this May?
Yeah, well, we were kind of talking about this the other day. I love the diversity of this conference. Now, when people think of diversity, they typically think of skin color or ethnicity. I'm talking about the diversity of all aspects of life. We have you who's speaking on philanthropy. We've never had someone talk about that, but we were talking about this, how everybody has that side of them, it seems like, where they want to give back in some sort of way. So the fact that we have someone talking about that to get people thinking about where they are now with their philanthropy, with their charities, with all of the giving back, to get someone to think about that and think about where they want to be, I think that's huge. To have a dating and relationship coach there to get people thinking about whether they're in a relationship or not, where are they with that, and then what can they do to continue to grow there as a person or in the relationship. I think that's really cool to have a guy who's made millions and millions of dollars, and I think he's made well over 20 million, and he's only 34. He's spoken in 75 different over 75 different countries. To have a guy like that people get to learn from, to get a better understanding about wealth, it's incredible. To have someone like Jen Gottlieb, who has a really good media company, who's a phenomenal public speaker, to be able to get to see a true keynote, 45-minute keynote from one of the greats, I feel like that's really cool. To have people like Rob Tracy and Colette Brown who get to talk a little bit more about the health side of things. I think it's just the overall diversity of the event. Delaney Wallace talking about the championship mindset, and then you
Love
got
that
the
guy.
you got the motivational guy, Carl Michelle, one of my best friends, who just every time the guy speaks, that the amount of positive feedback I get from what he says, it's incredible. I would ask people, I was like, what was your favorite speech last year? Was I couldn't tell you how many people said Carl. And so those are some of the things that I'm looking forward. I'm looking forward to the people who got VIPs and will access to spend some kind of secluded time with them outside of the main event. That was one thing I kind of wish I had more of last year. So those are different things. Like with you and you, the other speakers, and all access, we get to have that private dinner the Friday night. I feel like those are things I'm really looking forward to this year that we didn't have last year. And quite frankly, I always like to think, I was like, what can I do that the audience would never expect me to do? And my intro, I think, is just going to blow people away, where they're just going to be like,
Nice.
so I'm
I'm looking
excited for
forward to it,
that.
man. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm looking. I really can't wait. Obviously, it's just going to be super special having the first time, the early stages of our relationship, me being an attendee, guest of Rob's, and now having the opportunity to speak on that stage. Um, it just goes to show this a year can look very different. And I think that just is something that you gift people with that vision where you don't need to be in the same place you were last year. Man,
Ooh, that's a good.
you,
It's a good topic.
always looking for the material, man.
Yeah.
Listen, man, it's great working with you. I'm sure I'll see you soon. I'm super grateful for your time. Um, just to being on the Finding Purpose podcast, and I look forward to just growing with you, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And what you're doing, I think, is one of the coolest things that I've seen someone do, where you said, hey, you know what? I've been through some stuff in my life. I've chased some stuff in my life. And when I look back at where I want to go with the rest of my life, a big part of it is giving back. And to see someone who visualized that and now is doing that full time is pretty cool. And I know you got some big things coming up, like on September 30th. Just announced that. It's very cool to see you doing that, and you chasing your purpose.
I appreciate that, man, and like you said, it takes community.
Absolutely.
All right, and I don't know how many tickets are left. A to B Con, May 4th, in Stanford, University of Stanford, downtown. Contact me or Brandon for tickets, and we will get you there.
All right, right on. Thanks for having me. And if you watched this far, thanks for watching this far.
Thanks, B.